Hi, I'm Aristotelis Pitaridis. In this video, we are going to explain how to implement an AJAX call. AJAX is an acronym for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, which is a way of using client-side code in order to create asynchronous web applications. This means that we use JavaScript in order to ask asynchronously from the server to supply the application with information which will be used in order to display updated information on the screen or change the behavior of the application. We are going to use the jQuery library in order to make AJAX calls to the server, which is part of an ASP.NET MVC project. We suppose that you have a basic knowledge of jQuery because it is beyond of the scope of this course, so we will not cover it here. Let's create a new ASP.NET MVC project in order to make a demonstration of how to apply AJAX to our ASP.NET MVC applications. We give the name AJAX to the project and we click the OK button. We make sure that we have the MVC template selected and we check the Web API checkbox because we are going to need it in our project, and we click the OK button. We are going to make an AJAX call with which we will supply a number and will get some information back and display them on the screen. Let's start with the server side first, which is going to be an action in the home controller. We will name the action double value and it is going to return an instance of an object of type JSON result. The request object informs us if the request is an AJAX request by using the isAJAXRequest member function, so we can use it in order to identify non-AJAX requests and send back an error response. We are going to return a null value in order to stop the execution of the action. After that, we have to work with the data that we are going to send back to the client. First, we have to calculate the double value that we will send back. Now we can return an instance of a JSON result class, which has a property called data where we will store the information. We set the data property to be equal to an anonymous type with all the information that we want to send back to the client. In our case, we are going to include only the double value. Anonymous types provide a convenient way to encapsulate a set of read-only properties into a single object without having to explicitly define a type first. The first double value is the name of the property inside the anonymous type, which will host the double value. The second double value is a variable that we declared in the previous line. Now that we finished with the server-side part of our AJAX call, let's go to the index view of the home controller. We delete all the content and we add a header with the word AJAX. After that, we use Razor in order to create a small form which will make the client-side AJAX call. Now we are going to write the JavaScript which will make the job. We use the script section which has been defined in the layout of the site. Now we add a script tag which will host the JavaScript code. We will define an anonymous function which will be called by jQuery library when the DOM is fully loaded. Next, we will use the onJQuery method in order to attach one event handler to the button, which will fire when we click the button. Now we use the jQuery AJAX method in order to make the AJAX call. We have to supply some parameters in order to make the AJAX method work. First, we define the type of request, which is POST request. Next, we supply the URL that AJAX method will make the AJAX call. We use the action HTML helper of the URL object in order to find the URL of the double value action. After that, we have to define the data that we will send to the server. We send an object which has a property called value, and we set its value to be equal to the contents of the text box with ID txt amount. Next, we define what type of data we are going to use in order to communicate. Because the code that we write is in JavaScript and it is easier to handle JSON data, we are going to set it to be equal to JSON. Another very popular data type is the XML. Finally, we define that we do not want the data that we will get to be cached so that we will get the latest data. When we use AJAX method, asynchronously jQuery will call success or error, which will inform us if the AJAX call was successful or if there was an error. Success will supply us with a data variable which contains the information sent by the server, and error will supply us with 3 variables which can be used in order to find what the problem was. If we made a successful AJAX call, then we use the jQuery val method in order to change the value of the txt amount text box and replace its value with the double value property of the data sent back by the server. Next, we use the jQuery HTML method in order to change the value of the LBL message div and display an error message in case we have an error during the AJAX call. Finally, we return the value false so that we will inform jQuery that we handled the click of the event. Let's run the application so that we will see our application in action. We type a value in the text box and we click the double value button. We will see that the text box will change its value and a double value will appear. We can click the button again so that we will double the value again. Now that we implemented the AJAX call, let's go and add some more information in the object that the server sends back to the client. We go to the home controller, and after defining the double value in the data property, we add one more value which will return the result in the string form. We also go to the index view of the home controller, and we write one more line of code in the success so that we will display the message using the LBL message div. Let's run the application so that we will see the string value as well. We type a value in the text box and we click the double value button. We will see that the text type value will appear on the screen.